When I had TikTok, I have Instagram, Snapchat, I'm able to feel what they're feeling into a sense. And a lot of that just comes with being able to relate. I feel like it starts truthfully with understanding as an educator, understanding what drives you every day in the class, right? Finding that why or that acorn, as you guys say.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of Next Level University, where we teach you how to level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. We have a very special guest today who has been a family member of Next Level Nation, actually hyperconscious back in the day. This might be the closest remote interview we have ever done because you're not that far from us. So she is a teacher, she is a coach, she has a nonprofit. She is a podcaster. She's an amazing human being with an amazing heart, the one and only Johanna Annunziata.
Thank you. What an intro. And I can't even tell you how blessed I feel to be on Next Level U, being someone who watches or listens every single morning on my commute to work, to school. I'm just so blessed to be here and spread some of my inspiration.
We appreciate that. So we're going to trick you. Just talk about us the whole time. We got a half hour to talk about how amazing we are.
Perfect.
No, so
my favorite is Kevin.
Interesting.
Yes, I appreciate that. I'm going to save that. Don't edit that out. Leave that in.
Yeah.
So you're a teacher. And our goal was to pull back the curtain. We talk a lot about social media. We talk about, social media addiction, all of that stuff. We wanted to get the perspective from somebody who sees it, right? When I was a kid, when I was in school, cell phones had Tetris and Snake. So there was no point in really pulling out your cell phone during class. So when it comes to social media and technology and cell phones, can you explain to us what is the normal? And obviously, right now, if you're listening in the future, this is COVID times, so a lot of things aren't necessarily normal. But what was the normal for social media when it came to students of your school?
Yeah, so the norm is definitely to have that phone on you at all times, right? We're checking the TikTok, we're checking the Instagram. Snapchat is a huge one. They don't even really text anymore. They definitely don't call each other, but it's, that awkward angle. They go like this and they get the forehead up, and that is their way to communicate via Snapchat. And it's really fascinating as an educator. I'm always just trying to find the golden nuggets of why are they using it so much, right? Why do they rely on TikTok to feel good? And where does that come from? Because for me, my why is to inspire, impact, and encourage the future leaders of our world. So I don't just shut it off and say hey, put that phone away, or I'm taking that from you if you keep using it. I genuinely want to know the why behind using it so much. And I did a poll actually on my school Instagram, and a lot of my students shared that they're on social media 5+ hours a day, right? They're able to track it on their iPhones and see that. And for me, it's why, right? There's read a book, play a video game, or go for a walk, hang out with friends, play sports. And for them, it's the phone, it's the technology and all those different apps. And they shared a little bit of insight on the fact that they feel connected. They're able to learn information that maybe they wouldn't try to find themselves, but it's just quickly showing them click after click after click, which is good and bad. I always share with them, depending on who you follow, right? And I think Instagram, even TikTok, it has its values. And that's the biggest thing for me as an educator, is to show them, okay, I'm not telling you don't be on Instagram, maybe not 5+ hours, but I'm just telling you, make sure we're using it to better us. And being a younger teacher, I think sometimes they listen to me, and I share with them too. I'm very authentic of the fact that I use technology too. I am big on Instagram with my nonprofit, and just, it's entertaining. It's fun. So we actually, after listening to you two amazing humans, we did an we did a social media audit in one of my classes. And it was fascinating, Alan and Kevin, to hear some of the insight. And I actually had one student in particular that shared that he followed accounts that actually make him feel crappy, right? He doesn't feel good about them when he's looking at these pages. So I challenged him and I said, okay, so does this mean we're going to unfollow these accounts? And he said, no, it doesn't. And I said, but you just admitted it makes you feel bad. And he said, yeah, but if I don't follow them, then I'm not going to feel connected to what my friends are following. And if I don't know how to keep up with the conversation with my friend group, then I'm going to be looked at as a loser, right? Or I'm going to be looked at as not as cool. But he's aware that it does not bring him joy. So it's just interesting, like that immediate feel that they have to fit in, that they have to be following these pages in order to be cool. And for me, I always want to just say to them, you are cool. First off, you're already wicked cool. But let's make sure we're bringing that our technology is bringing us value and not automatically hurting us, which some of them are able to admit through the audit. So it is just really interesting to see how aware they are, but not really aware.
Well, they're aware, but they're not necessarily willing to change.
Yes.
And I think that one thing that's interesting, and I've said this many times, it's such a trip because back in high school, I was a very nerdy, quote unquote, smart kid who cared a lot about academics. And I remember I would see all the validation and significance go to the athletes, even though maybe on some level I knew that down the road that would flip. And it certainly did for most people. But back then, all I cared about was, and I think high schoolers in general, and correct me if I'm wrong, they care so much about fitting in. Yeah. Once you get into the world, you kind of have to stand out. And it's this interesting thing of how can we possibly teach the world's youth that I know this feels like the worst thing ever, that you don't fit in right now, but what's popular is actually what's average.
Yeah.
The most popular wine is Franzia. And it comes in a box. The most popular restaurant is McDonald's. Right. So what's popular is actually by default average and mediocre. And when you're an adult, you want to live an exceptional life, not an ordinary one. And I think, what would you say to someone who wants to understand kids at a deeper level and how to influence them? Maybe they're parents, maybe they're teachers, maybe they're just online educators like Kevin and myself who want to understand the next generation at a deeper level and why they're so addicted to these platforms. What can we do to try to actually break through? Because if they don't feel like we get them, we won't be able to influence them. So what can we say to them that might actually work? What have you tried to say that has actually had an effect?
Yeah, definitely. That's a great question. And I feel like it starts with just meeting them where they are, right? And maybe that means downloading the apps. I had TikTok for a little bit. I did not love it. And truthfully, I did not love it because I was on it so much. And it came to the point where I was like, wow, this is actually kind of cool. This is fun. And then I was like, Joe, you're on it for probably the 5+ hours. And I'm like, I need to stop. So I deleted it, but I have that awareness to delete it. And I'm also not trying to fit in and be cool. I would say meet them at that level. When I had TikTok, I have Instagram, Snapchat. I'm able to feel what they're feeling into a sense. And a lot of that just comes with being able to relate. And I think whether I'm 28 or I'm 52 as a teacher, I want to impact their future growth. So that means I'm going to have to download that app and maybe just scroll through it for a little bit and just see what they're feeling and why they're feeling it. Another thing is just creating that safe space for them. I think that's huge. Making sure that when they're in your classroom, they're feeling like they're not being judged, right? They're judged probably 85% of their day, right? So if they can come to my English class and not feel like I'm this extra person that is making them feel kind of crappy about themselves, if I can give them that for the 82-minute block, I'm going to give them that. So I think that's it's just getting to know them, getting to know their why, even though they don't maybe 100% realize what that means. I always start class with some kind of mindfulness. And that, honestly, in that 5 to 10 minutes, they're not on their phones or they're not on the apps. And it's interesting to watch that. I'll walk around and I'll kind of see what they're doing. And to see them not on TikTok, not on Snapchat, not on Instagram, it tells you something. And a big part of that too, I think, is the energy that you bring when having these discussions. Your tone of voice is huge. That's a piece of feedback my students will give me is, Miss A, you never sound like you're judging us or you're condescending. And that's all my tone of voice. I could say something to them in a way, I could say the same thing twice, right? I could be like, Jacob, why are you on Instagram? Right? That sounds a little judgy. Or I could be like, Jacob, why are you on Instagram? Right? That sounds way different. And they respond to that. And just them knowing that I genuinely care about their success. I don't care if they get 100 or an A in my English class, like that, if they remember Of Mice and Men or To Kill a Mockingbird. Are those great texts? Yes. But I don't care if they remember Lenny or George. I care about the impact and the feeling that I give them when they're in my room. And that all starts with just meeting them where they are and understanding what they care about and why they care about that. And I mean, that's so much of Amelia and Bianca, right? Like, what's the why behind what you're doing? And that's the biggest thing for me. I ask questions and I pay attention to the tone of voice in which I'm asking them.
That's a lesson for everybody too, is influence in general. You have to understand what someone else believes. We have a quote in the corner of the studio that says, oh yeah, all behavior is belief driven. You have to know what they value. You have to know what they believe. You have to know what already influences someone if you want to influence them. And anyone listening right now can test that out. Like, I remember Mel Robbins talking about, as soon as I started playing the video game my son was playing, we were like two peas in a pod. You want to bond with your son by having him come read books with you. It's not necessarily going to work. Whereas if you go to where he is and then you build that bond, then your leadership by example, maybe he'll end up reading books. And I think that's a really powerful lesson for anyone who wants to have a positive influence, not just on youth, but in general.
That's a good point. Do you find yourself throughout the day, are you like taking people's phone? Like, how does that, what is the expectation and what is the allowance of social media? And it seems like you're way more progressive than most teachers probably because you're trying to get a deeper understanding. So like, what is the norm for this?
Pre-COVID or during COVID?
Pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID, like in classroom. Yeah.
Yeah. So at Nipmuc Regional High School, we're super blessed to be a one-to-one school. So what that means is every student and educator has a laptop or an iPad. So they always have technology at their fingertips. So with that being said, they're always on it because that's the expectation. Now that's their iPad. They can get, the apps and that kind of thing. But for their phones, every teacher is different. So for me, I'm cool with them having it out and even having it on their desk. I'm also cool with them using it when they are done with the work that, I've given them. So it also helps me really track engagement in my class. As soon as I see that phone come out and they're actively on it, I know, okay, either they're done with their work and now they're bored, right? Or if they're trying to hide it and do the under the desk thing, that tells me, okay, Miss A, you're being boring, right? Like level up, because if they're jumping onto their phone, something exciting is not happening in the class, right? When I shared the fact that first 5 to 10 minutes, they're not on their phone, that means they're into what we're doing. And now that's super difficult. And I'm sure even some of my colleagues would listen to this and be like, yeah, but it's hard. And it is hard. Being a teacher and inspiring our youth is difficult. But for me, and a lot of the teachers at my school, we have a great school, but I'm not looking for easy. So I always want to be on, and I always want the students to genuinely feel when they're in my class, like I don't need to look at Instagram. Or if I am, a lot of times I'll tell the students like, hey, look that up. Like, see if anybody posted that on Instagram. What's trending? And I try to tie that in so that they see I'm not bashing social media. I just want to make sure we're using it to add value to our lives.
Fire.
But for the standard at Nipmuc, it's pretty loose. If they should be getting their work done first, and we're huge in engagement and just like what that looks like. So say our principals were to walk around and they'd see students on their phone, it wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing. It wouldn't be looked at as bad. So it's just, how are the students using it? Are they getting their work done? Are they productive? But for me specifically, it hurts my ego a little bit when I see the phones come out when I'm talking, or because I know, think about it when we're out to eat and you jump on that phone, you're either bored or you're trying to, make yourself more comfortable. So when I see the phone, I typically change my volume. I get more excited and try to capture their attention again.
Such a powerful reframe. And as a speaker, that's the truth in a speech as well. If everybody's sitting there on their phone, not paying attention,
Or
it's not
sleeping.
very engaging. Yeah, which we've had a few at Mass Maritime that were very tired, I think.
Do you think so? I think we did excellent.
But no, we did. And Wayne literally said, I've never seen someone engage an audience here to that extent. And then afterwards too, the questions are proof of the engagement.
Yeah.
What kind of questions do you get in your classroom that pertain to because I'm always trying to understand the youth in terms of their desires, their fears. You and I have talked about their beliefs, their values, their goals. And I spoke to your classroom, the honors English class, which was honestly awesome. So what kind of questions do you get about life in your classroom? Because when I look back to the teachers that made the biggest impact on me, it was always them teaching me more about life than just the subject, but it also happened to be a subject I love, which made me love the teacher.
Right. Yeah, I would say, well, one thing that's really cool that you'll appreciate is we kind of have this thing in that B block class that you came and inspired, and we say, what would Alan do?
Aww.
So we have these moments where we're like, huh. And I also have the Teddy story posted up, and that's my like recheck. If I ever need that little extra boost, I'm like, okay, here it is. But yeah, the conversations we typically talk about are things happening in the world, right? A lot of them will come in super curious. They know that I'm definitely a strong ally in the, in the community, and I run a social justice group. So they'll come in with questions, what's going on in the news? Miss A, did you hear this recent story? How do you feel about this? And I always try to give my opinion without swaying those who maybe don't feel the same way I do. And that's like I'd say that's the biggest struggle, even like for my athletes too, who I'm super close and comfortable with. Like we're saying we love each other and we're hugging and all that stuff. It's just finding that boundary where I'm giving them my side of a situation, but I'm also leaving it so that they're even more curious. So I always want to leave them with some golden nuggets, but then I want them to go away and think like, okay, so now what does that mean? Or how can I use that to impact? I would say like specific example of really cool conversations we just finished with of Mice and Men. And we break it into 4 different conversations. So we have gender inequality, racism, social class, and what's our last one? It'll come back to me. But from there, the students are doing a research paper or a presentation, and they do it from the 1920s to the progression of the present day. And so many conversations come about through that topic. And one of my favorite things is hearing them debate, which might sound weird. You're like, you want to hear them argue, but teaching them how to not all have the same opinion, I think is honestly the biggest golden nugget in the class. Right. And hearing the discussions that come about through that. And I will say there's never phones out when we talk about real world things. Just, letting them know that we don't have to all agree, and it's also okay to offend one another. But from there, how are you responding, right? If Alan says something to me and I feel a little offended, I need to have the confidence to say like, hey, Alan, that kind of offended me. Can we, try to approach it in this way? And showing them that those conversations are valid. So to give specifics, it's just, racism's huge in the world right now, right? So they'll always bring up, well, what do you think about Breonna Taylor? Or I'm going to say, what do you think about, Arbery? And I'm always like, okay, well, here's my approach. Here's my thought on it. But I'm also not there, right? So it's like I have to give, as an educator, you have to make sure you're not being biased in the situation. And I just always want to see what they think and get the value from them, but just let them know that it's okay to have strong opinions. Let's just make sure we're empathetic of everyone in the room.
Fire.
Yeah.
When you started teaching, or when you decided you wanted to teach, did you have these thought processes of like, I'm going to come in and do things my own specific way? Or is this something did you see a need for it in the classroom? Like, how did you end up as this version of Johanna?
Yeah, that's a great question. My students ask that like all the time.
Well, they should be podcasters for sure.
So for me, it started my junior year in an English class. So I went to the Miller School of Albemarle, and I had a phenomenal English teacher, and he's super similar to how I am today. I remember going in the first day of school, sitting down, and him saying the same thing I basically said. I don't care if you are a great writer. I was like, okay. I don't care if you remember a single text that we read. And now I'm like, whoa. He said, I just want you to leave my room better than how you entered the first day of school. And I was like, yes. And for a junior, I'm not fully, I'm like, okay, this he's interesting. I like him. I can vibe with him. But I didn't really understand what he meant probably until my senior year of college, when I was deep into, about to graduate, deep into my education as, going to be a high school teacher. and just realizing the impact that I could have on kids. And my biggest thing is I just want to make sure whether I'm 28 or 58, I'm still having that impact, and just making sure that I heard someone say, it was either you two or Amelia or Bianca, because you're like my life source, but having someone say, like, we created this generation, right? This generation coming up, it is because of us, because it's a whole generation where this impact and the way they act and the, technology, and that's because of what we did, right? Like, we impacted that. We provided them with these resources and tools, and it's up to us to make sure that we're teaching them correctly, because we are who it falls under. If we're not doing it, who's going to do it? So to answer that question, my junior year of high school is when I was inspired by my English teacher. And then just through basketball and coaching and being surrounded by amazing humans, I realized, wow, I am the person I am today through all of these multiple impacts that made me an amazing human, right? I'm going to keep growing and being awesome, and I want to give that back. I truly believe in the future of our world, right? And it starts with these kids. And a lot of times people will say to me, oh, I can't believe you work with kids. How do you do it? Oh my gosh. And I can't help but think, like, well, why not? Right? Like, they're our future. If we're not loving them and being inspired by them and fueling them, who's going to? And why do I just am a huge advocate of our younger generation. So for me, I'm like, yeah, I'm blessed to be inspired by these kids every day.
I love your attitude. Your attitude is infectious.
Thank you.
It's a give gratitude attitude.
That was
yeah,
good.
attitude of gratitude.
It literally is, though. That's one of my favorite parts about you, too, is just wanting to be such a positive in everything you do. It's so clear that that's a conscious effort. It's very easy to be humdrum, and that takes no effort. I think showing up and being a bright light takes so much effort. And it's just an honor to know that your kids are saying that. It's like unbelievable. Touched my heart so much. So thank you I would never have known, but I try to think of those things, when I put conscious effort towards things. So that means the world to me. One thing I wanted to ask you as well, where do you, and I don't want this to turn into any sort of a older generation bashing session, right? You've got baby boomers, you've got Gen X, you've got our generation, and then you've got the generations behind us. And I think that every generation, right now we have 5 generations in the workforce. Okay. And it's the first time in human history where we've had all 5 generations in the workforce, because way, way, way back in the day, it was, the life expectancy was very, very low. Now the life expectancy is large enough and people aren't retiring as early. So from a leadership perspective, you have to understand all the different facets, right? If you want to influence influencers and lead leaders, and you want students to think for themselves and not just be followers, you have to understand all the dynamics of where each person's at. So for you, how are you dancing between administration and helping the kids understand administration, but then also helping the administration understand the kids? As that sort of mediary, how are you handling all of that, and what's been your approach?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say for me, I try to always set the expectation when they enter the room that this is our classroom. I will rarely say, this is my room, this is my class, because it's not, right? It's the makeup of all of the kids in the class plus me. And for me, it's making sure they understand that. Now, there's also that line, right? I am not, in most aspects of what I do, I'm not the authoritative type. So I truly just want to learn from everyone in the room. Now, my ego does come out to play sometimes. So when the students, maybe are having an inappropriate conversation, or they're not doing what they need to be doing, yes, I am the leader or the boss in the room. And that's when I'll show it, but I don't do it in the traditional, maybe what you see in movies or real life of like hey, you have to do this. Hey, you have to do that. Oh, you're going to the office. For me, I never responded well to that type of teaching when I was in high school. I didn't like to be barked at or yelled at because they care so much about what they look like. So if I'm embarrassing them, I just lost their trust big time. So for me, it's just letting them know we are all adding value to this class. They probably add the most value. I tell them I'm going to be who I am consistently, I've always said to myself, whether I'm having the worst day of my life or the best day of my life, my students will never know. And I don't say that to mask my pain, but I know how much of an impact that I make on them. And I don't want them to be like, oh, have you ever had that teacher where they walk in one day and they're smiling face and they're pumped and ready to go, and the next day they're really mean and kind of bitchy, and you're like, okay, what did I do? What happened? So I refuse to be that. And I tell them, I'm going to be consistent. You're going to see positive Miss A. What are you going to bring to this class, though? Because you're either going to make it even better, or we're just going to have a great Miss A day. So like, what kind of day are we having? And I think putting that ownership on them so that they understand you make this class what it is. That's the first step for me. Day one, making sure they know that. And then being really, really aware of my language so that I'm not saying this is my class or your, like, it's always we in the class. And then when it comes to administration, I'm super blessed, and I'm not just saying this. I have really great principals. So we have co-principals. We don't have vice principals. And that in itself, right? It's like they're sharing that role and they're making our school what it is. And I love that it's a male and a female. So we're seeing both genders, in power and leading our school to where it needs to be. And they allow a lot of freedom for the teachers and believe a lot in our students that the more they grow and the more they're challenged, the better off our school and our community is going to be. And of course, there's always obstacles, right? The freshmen come in, they're a little immature, and we're guiding them to be, the best version of themselves. But I would say the biggest compliment I get is when people walk in. Sometimes they say like, oh, I couldn't actually tell who the teacher was. I'm like, thank you. Because A, I'm so young, but because I'll sit like with the students. When I teach, I either sit up here. So I have a little bit of a height on them, but typically like I'm sitting with them and we're jamming together. And I think even that, where I'm at their level sitting, is huge, because you see students up walking around, teachers up walking around, or you see them always at a higher level. And for me, it's like, no, I don't have to be, right? Like, I like to believe that my attitude and my personality and their trust for me builds that respect. I don't need to say it. It just is going to happen. So I think just letting them know that, like, you have a say, you have value in this class. Because think about it, social media, right? Like, their need to be validated, that starts on social media. That poll saying that if they didn't have their phone for a week, I had like 38 students that were like, I would feel lost. So making sure they're in school more than they're at home. So making sure when they're here at school, they're feeling their best, or at least they're feeling like they matter. And I think that's huge for them.
Powerful.
Yeah, this is fire.
Powerful.
I'm enjoying this a lot.
If the whoever it is, say somebody came to you tomorrow and said, okay, Miss A, this is your last day. You have however many students there are in the world, right?
Yeah.
You're going to do an assembly, right? The assembly is all yours. All the students in the world are sitting there. You have 15 seconds to share a message with these kids that will shape their life. What would you say? Put you on the spot.
I know. I love that. Well, first off, do I have this mic?
You have that mic, and you're walking proud. You're like, the energy is
heels.
there. Yeah, you're good. You're good to go.
All right, let's say. I want to say my favorite quote, but I don't think that's what I would actually share. I would say 15 seconds.
It can be over because Alan's supposed to do a 10-second blip, and he's written books in that time. So.
And his are like 50 seconds. I'm like, Alan, I need to get into school. I need your 10-second clip.
I see you.
I would say, first off, I'd greet them as friends. That's how I greet everybody. Hey, friends, I need you to know that you add so much value to this world. You are the future of our world. And I need you to believe it first, because once you believe it, change will come. And I would want them to know that you are genuinely loved. And I know that sounds woo-woo, and I know sometimes we're like, Miss A, but I love you. And you are going to impact and change this world. And I can't wait to be a part of your journey. Just always remember that it's not easy, right? Life, being happy is hard, and being miserable is hard. So choose your hard and choose the right path, because you can do this.
Super powerful.
My goodness.
I didn't know if that was because we're coming up on time here, but I do have
No, you're good.
one
You're
more
good.
question.
That was
if
just
that's
something
cool.
that was jumping for me.
Yeah, that was really powerful.
I wanted to put Joe on the spot and see what would happen.
Yeah.
And she crushed it.
She crushed it. 50-second blip. No, I'm kidding. So one of the things that I want to ask you, and by the way, I did notice, so to provide context to the listeners, when I spoke in your classroom, I did notice that your principals are more progressive. I was literally like, Johanna has a lot of freedom in her classroom. I sensed that. And it was really kind of awesome. I guess, how do we instill change to make more of that a thing? Because, and here's the thing, Kevin and I are online educators. You know, we want to be a mentor in people's pocket. 5 episodes a week, we're going to be there for you.
Long arms.
This week, 6 episodes a week, believe it or not. So we're having an impact, and we want to have a better and more impact. I guess the only way to do that is to understand where people are, like you said, to understand what they value, what they believe. And I think the education system, if I'm completely honest, was built for a different time. Mm-hmm. And I think that you're so far on the progressive side that I truly believe, and you and I have talked in depth about this offline, I believe you are the future educator that this world desperately needs. And I'm not even kidding. Like, I feel that in my heart of hearts, like, so deeply. How do we collectively start creating some of these dynamics in the classroom that you've so beautifully demonstrated?
Yeah. Reflecting on this and thinking about this, I feel like it starts truthfully with understanding, as an educator, understanding what drives you every day in the class, right? Finding that why, or that acorn, as you guys say. Because for me, on the toughest days, right? Because the kids do drive me nuts. I love them to death, but they drive me nuts. So on those days is when I really look at my phone or look wherever it's written, and I say, okay, your why, Johanna, is to inspire, impact, and encourage these future leaders. Find a way to do that, right? I don't want easy, so find a way to do that. And for me, that's what gets me back to, okay, let's put grab a little more patience, Joe, and let's rock. I think for some teachers, and it's okay that this is their why, but it's all right, let me get students to college, or let me make them better writers or readers. And that's all super, super valuable. But at the end of the day, if they don't feel safe and connected with us, they're not going to be better writers. They're not going to be better readers. And they're in school for what? Just high school, just through their high school education, 17, 18 years. And sometimes they don't even learn about, taxes, right? Sometimes they do if they take a business class, but not every student will. They don't learn how to manage stress, right? They don't learn the importance of gratitude or just being a better human. Speaking skills, they get that in college if they take a public speaking class, but not really every student will get that in high school. So it's just making sure, like, what is our why as a teacher, or what is your why as a school community? Because I often, I would say probably 3-4 times a week, I'm going back to my why. And I really have to self-check and be like, all right, Joe, this is your why. It's not about little Susie getting 100 on her vocab quiz, right? It's not about Mark, who just didn't do any of his homework this week. Like, is that frustrating as a teacher? Sure, because we put in a lot of work on our end and then they don't do it. But for me, I have to self-check and be like, but is that your why, Joe? Do you care if he does this assignment? Or do you care if he comes and communicates to you, like, hey, Miss A, I dropped the ball. I didn't do this. To be honest, I think it's boring. How is this going to serve me? How can I be better, Miss A? And that's what I care about. How are they navigating through these problems in a good tone of voice? That's my biggest thing I tell them. And how are they, figuring out what's important for them to be successful? And success looks different. Some kids, it's college. Some kids, it's getting a job. Some students, it's just being happy, right? Graduating high school and feeling okay and feeling happy. So I would say the biggest thing for educators is we really need to figure out that why. You have to figure out, you're here. This is your job. I'm super blessed that I just love it. But some educators, it's not the same situation. It's a paycheck to them, or it's, a nice 7 to 2, and then they get to be a parent after because they're out early, and that's valid. Is that setting up our future leaders for success, though? And I just always, I'm telling you, the 100 like most important thing is just finding that why, because it's going, if we're not making that impact on these students, I always say, who is going to? And we're in front of them probably more than most people. So we're the ones that get to be that shining light for them, or unfortunately, we're the one that gets to kill their joy. So just making sure that we're being on the other side. I want to be the shining light, teaching them how to navigate through this crazy world. And again, that starts with understanding why I'm here, and it's to help and impact them.
Emilia would be very proud with how many times you just said why. It's obvious to me. It's so hilarious. It's obvious to me.
It's so important to me. I know.
It makes sense that you're her client because she's the Why Power podcast, right? Everything's
Literally.
why with her. It's beautiful.
But it's why we do anything, right? If we don't know that, then we're not going to level up.
Right.
Next level you.
Right.
Right? What's your why? If I had to flip that back to you, like, you guys have such a strong passion for what you do, and it shows every single day. And on the tough days, because I know you two have tough days
Every day.
right? Like, you reframe and you think back to what motivates you and what's your acorn and what's the why, and that's what keeps you going, because you know you're changing lives. And it's the same thing. I think podcasters and teachers have so much in common, because we're educating, we're inspiring, and we're being that voice for those that maybe don't believe in themselves.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I love what you two do so much. That's why I listen to you. Truthfully, it's why I listen to you before I go to work. I could put on music. I could, listen to something else. But for me, I need that fuel so that I can go out and achieve the goals that I know I was put on this earth to do.
Appreciate that so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's interesting because you're like, when you do hit that rough patch, you don't have the opportunity. Like, if your why is intertwined, you don't have the opportunity to quit. You can't just be like, you know what? Teaching isn't for me. Like, these kids will figure it out. Like, you can't do that. You can't do that and stay in alignment with yourself. So I think you've done a beautiful thing where you you haven't really burned your boats, but you have in a way. Like, this is who you are. This is who Johanna is. She is this positive, filled with gratitude person who is so focused on being a great leader, a great example, and a shining light, and you are that in spades.
Thank you. I had a student, I'll leave with, I have this thought. I had a student ask me, like, Miss A, if you could quit your job and choose any other profession, what would you do? And I sat with that because I'm like, I always want to be authentic with them and real. I don't want to, like, BS them. And I was like, okay. And I was like, well, I would pour in to give gratitude more, but genuinely, I would still be an educator. And they were like, really? I'm like, yes, I genuinely love being in front of you every single day. And one of my students was like, yeah, but you wouldn't, like, do something that would make you millions of dollars. And I'm like, I mean, what are we offering here? Like, no, but I was like, no, I get my joy from being in front of you every single day. And they're like, wow, that's great. I'm like, yeah, I'm so serious. Like, I love the energy that you guys bring. And it was a cool moment because I truly believe that they believed me. And I was like, yeah, I love you guys. Like, I love you. I do try to leave my classes by telling them I love them. Which at the first time I do it, they're kind of like, and I'm like, no, because some of them may never hear it. So
I have one last quote, and then we can part here because we're over time. But first and foremost, this has been amazing. And I think it's awesome that you're so in alignment in that role, because that's why you level up and take it so seriously and are impacting so many lives. And the fact that Emilia and I and Kevin are able to impact you, and then you're impacting those lives, like, that is like the reason we do what we do as well. This is the quote, John Wooden. No written word, no spoken plea can teach our youth what they should be, nor all the books on all the shelves. It's what the teachers are themselves.
Yes, I love that.
I believe in that so effing deeply. That's why I memorized that quote and haven't said it in years. That is who you are, and it makes me so happy to know that I've had a positive impact on you. And obviously Emilia has as well, by the way. It's pretty awesome.
No, can you tell?
Yeah, I can, for sure. Thank you so much for doing this. Thank you for leveling up your mic for us. And
We're
You're
not
the
done.
best.
We're not done yet, though.
Oh,
We're not
okay.
done with you
We're not
yet
done yet.
because you talked about gratitude,
Right.
And you have a nonprofit. So Alan and I, Jeff. Well, the only thing that we were responsible. Well, there's a
gonna
lot
go
of things
grab
we were
it.
supposed
I'm
to
gonna
do.
grab it.
Yeah, go grab it. So Johanna sent us some really nice Give Gratitude sweatshirts. We were supposed to wear them. We wore them last week when we were originally going to record. I left mine at home today. I Jeffed it. But talk to us a little bit about Give Gratitude. It's your nonprofit. How did that start, and why is that so important to you? Oh, and these beautiful notes as well that you wrote us.
Yeah, so I appreciate you bringing it up too, and I love how much you love your swag. Alan will like message me like, I slept in this and woke up in it. I'm like, Alan, that's phenomenal. I love it. But yeah, so Give Gratitude is a nonprofit out of Worcester. Yeah,
Worcester.
there it is, Worcester. And it just honestly, it started during COVID. So it's always been really heavy on my heart. I truly believe that I was put on this earth to inspire our younger generation. So I kind of live by, if anybody is Christian or Catholic, I live by the Bible verse 1 Peter 4:10, which is just using the gifts that God have blessed us with to inspire others. So for me, that's what Give Gratitude is. It started during COVID because I was like, hey, if time is what's been holding me back on doing this, I have plenty of time. So girl, go crush it. And that's kind of how it started. And gratitude is a word that truly transforms lives, right? It's putting our attention and focus on the things that are adding value and the things that are blessings that no one can really take away from us, right? There's certain gratitude moments where people can't take that away from you, and just putting our attention and focus on that. So all of the proceeds that I make when I do t-shirts or clothing, hoping to kind of branch out in different directions, but I donate those proceeds back to inner city schools. So for the sweatshirts right now, we have about 1,400 saved or made, and I'm donating that to Belmont Street School in Worcester, Mass. And it's just being an educator in a district where we are super privileged and super blessed. I do see schools that aren't as fortunate as us and don't have the same opportunities. And for me, it's really important for students to know, like, there is just some random lady in Auburn, Massachusetts that believes in their future. And there's no strings attached. I'm not looking for fame or clout, or I just want kids to know, like, I care about you. I care about your future. And I can't wait to see you as a leader one day. So pouring back into our inner city school districts is just really huge for me.
Where can people find all of that stuff? And you also have a live Instagram TV series as well.
Yes, I do. Wisdom Wednesdays. I've had both of these amazing gentlemen.
I did better. I did better.
If you had to choose, it would be Kevin.
I had to choose, it's no. So yeah. So on Instagram, it's at Give Gratitude, the number 2 in all. And then you will see the link in that bio on Instagram. It connects you to the website that I sell the crew necks. And then also the website is give-gratitude-shop.square.site. And all proceeds 100% go to Belmont Street School, and you can buy, you could donate directly to the school, or you could just leave some gratitude on the page and just share some of your positivity. That's also a huge blessing. And the teacher, the principal, Jennifer Keating at Belmont, is going to use the proceeds and donate them to ESL teachers to help them with resources and just help serve the ESL students a little bit better.
Again, that's at Give Gratitude to All for your Instagram handle. A lot of our listeners have Instagram, and we'll make sure that's in the show notes. Also, for those of you on YouTube, I am holding up
Spin it around.
I'm holding up the sweatshirt. By the way, comfiest sweatshirt of all time.
For sure.
Like, legitimately slept in it last night. No joke. And normally I sleep shirtless. I don't know why I said that.
Normally I sleep naked.
Yeah, right. Kind of a big deal. But I made an exception for this. Give Gratitude.
Love it.
Johanna, thank you so much for coming on the show. If we wanted to, we could read these quickly.
All right, first of all, I don't quickly read anything. Okay, here we go. Kevin, thank you for inspiring me to be a better woman each and every day. I feel so connected to you through Next Level University. I value your wisdom and appreciate you for believing in me and my why, in parentheses, acorn, before truly knowing me. You are making such an impact on my heart, and because of you, I am better. I thank God that you didn't take your life, because without your continuous impact, I would not be growing into the person I am. Kevin, thank you for showing up in this world and fighting to be the best man you can be. In return, I am so blessed. I appreciate you. Kevin, P.S. Pinball has transformed my mindset. Thank you, Johanna. I appreciate you.
For context, what's pinball?
Pinball is when somebody says something to you, usually in your relationship, and it triggers you and you want to say the first thing that comes to your mind. You should let that thing bounce around a little bit because it's probably not the right thing to say.
I use that in class on the daily.
It's a lifesaver.
It is a relationship saver for sure. Okay, Alan, you are big time. I value words of affirmation is a thing for me. Appreciate you. I value the man you are and will continue to be. Your fight and dedication to be the best man you can truly inspires me to be the best I can. I love hearing your wisdom. I am right now as you talk about money. Nice. And I am learning so much per usual. You are such a breath of fresh air, and I love how insightful you are on so many topics. It is truly amazing. Thank you for taking the time to be so well-rounded because you are directly helping me. Alan, I appreciate you for believing in me. It means so much. Your care, love, and grace is so beautiful. I thank you. We appreciate you so much.
So much.
Literally, the sweatshirts, the notes, they're literally hanging in the studio. That's where I went and got them. We're going to have to rehang them now. But they will stay there. So
Forever.
Thank you so much for impacting our lives. Thank you so much for having me to impact your kids. And if you ever need anything, you reach out.
It's a great opportunity for us to be able to showcase somebody local who's doing amazing things and that we believe in. And mark my words, I will say it here publicly. Next 2021 is going to be a big year for Next Level University, and I'm going to donate a large amount of money. I promise. I'm not there yet, but I promise when I am. Like, you have my word. I will.
I love
I
it.
promise.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you.
part of who I am and what I have to do.
That makes me so excited because I 100% know you're big time and you're going to continue to be big time. So when you say that, I'm like, he's going to crush it.
It's already out there. It's just a matter of the universe catching up, I promise.
Exactly.
But just know your words and your habits and the way that you men carry yourselves is directly impacting who I am and who I'm going to continue to be. So I appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And in the words of your students, we are so extra.
That's what the kids are saying?
Yeah.
I like big time.
So,
can you say big time to see us out here?
So big time.
So big
Next
time.
Level University, big time.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Johanna. Thank you so much for joining us.
Talk to you soon.
Thank you.